Hi there, welcome to the first of my bonus demonstrations in the lead up to the Introduction to Wildlife in Scratchboard workshops coming this May. In this demo, we're going to have a quick look at how to work with fur on a meerkat. So here we've just got a basic little drawing on my Scratchboard. I work with a grease pencil, so this is just a Staedtler Lumicolor. You can also get these as a Stabilo or a Chinograph pencil. The whole point of going to a grease pencil is that you can wipe it away if you need. You can actually burnish back the mark once you're finished, but it allows you to move marks and you don't dig into the surface of the board, which with other pencils you can do. Obviously, for a lot of people starting out, you might prefer to get there and just work with tracing it on there using a transfer paper, and that's viable as well. I prefer to freehand. It's just the way I've always been. It's got a lot to do with obviously how long I've been doing this for. I've been working with Scratchboard since about 2008, 2009, somewhere around there was when I started with the medium. So I've got just a few years under my belt with it. It's not my main medium, but it is one that I come back to regularly to push my skills, and a lot of the things that I do with Scratch I actually utilize through other mediums as well. So for example, my watercolor work actually features a lot of scalpel work for highlights and bringing things together with textures that a lot of people wouldn't really think about. Alright, enough about that. Let's get started with this work. So, we've just got this cute little meerkat sitting on a rock. I'm not going to stress too much about a lot of the background stuff. This is just to get a feel for how to work with fur textures. I'll get there and start live, so you'll actually see step by step how I'm getting this started. Once we get the ball rolling, I'll just put it to a sped up video for you. When you're watching it, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'd be more than happy to answer and help you along the way. The reference for this will be available in the Google Drive. Enjoy. So to get started, I'm just taking this scratch blade. This is the one that comes in the basic ampersand toolkit. Not necessary, but it's a good little tool to have a play with. I'm working quite small here, and we're just going to start by stippling in around where that little eye patch is. Pressure on your tool is really crucial, especially when you're getting started. So take your time with this. Don't try and gouge the whole thing out in one hit. It's a gradual build-up. When selecting photos to work with in Scratchboard, you're looking for good textures, good detail, and generally some interesting contrasts as well. With this meerkat, obviously, we have a lot of very bright lights on him, and it's just a matter of paying attention to what's going on with the fur direction. So I generally get there and start along the snout on something like this. It's one of the areas where we're getting the strongest light source. Don't try and keep all of your marks in the same direction. The whole point is fur is reasonably haphazard. There's definitely a pattern to it, but you don't want everything to become monotonous. Look for the overall patterns and build up from there. like to have a piece of sandpaper on hand. Sort of, I use it on blades like this. This is just not quite digging in the way it needs to. So I've just got a piece of sandpaper here, and all I do, I take the blade face down and I drag it against that diamond tip. Crissing and crossing backwards and forwards just to sharpen that point. It's quite keen after a couple of scrapes, which will allow for a much easier process. Immediately we get a much sharper dig in, a finer point from the blade than what we were on those few initial marks. So as I said, fur direction is the key here. Generally when I'm doing a lot of my pencil work, there might be a rough indication of some of that, but a lot of it is just done on the fly while I'm looking at my reference. In some cases, I've had clients get there and tell me I've actually put more detail in than what the reference was that they've been supplying me with, which is quite funny. It's a great thing about Scratchboard. You can really knuckle down on the tendencies to bring texture and detail into play. Along the way we'll look at a few different animals as well. And there'll be some other bonus demos that go with this one and the live sessions obviously. And we'll look at a variety of tools that can be utilized. Some people like to just direct scratch. So what I mean by that is that we're just literally looking at the tonal values as you see them and trying to replicate straight off the bat at that point. And it's not easy, it is a very difficult process because obviously a lot of it has to do with the pressure, how much space you leave in between your marks. But one thing you have as an advantage is that you can actually do ink washes over your boards as well. Obviously for color, but you can also use it for subtle graduations and bringing through new layers. One artist that's an absolute master at that is Patrick Hedges, who I've had the pleasure of watching his entire Scratchboard journey from the very start, as we both spent a lot of time on wet canvas back in the day working together. I've actually been lucky enough to run a very influential show with him many years ago, raising money for the chimps in Sierra Leone. My work's nothing like his, but it certainly is influenced by what he did and what he continues to do with the medium. So at this point I'm just leaving little grooves for where the whiskers, those little dark indents for where the whiskers are going to be put. You don't see all of it, but we just build it up gently. So obviously with Scratchboard, a lot of it has to do with finding those strongest contrasts and also being able to control the subtle areas. Always look at your fur directions, always pay attention to what's going on there. Generally I like to try and drag the tool down in the same direction as the fur, as opposed to an upward flick. I find the downward flick works better because you get the natural taper of the line as it moves away from the origin point. If you need to move your board around to get stuff like that, just go for it. There's no real right or wrong way to do it. Over time, the pressure thing will come into its own and you'll work it out pretty quickly. So I hope you enjoyed this little teaser of how to work with Scratchboard using a couple of tools. If you would like to know more, why not join me for the workshops? We'll be covering a great deal of content over the 4-week span, from basic mark making all the way through to full animal portraits. If you have any questions, feel free to get in contact. I hope that you join us soon.